Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula says government remains on track to achieve what he's described as the formalization of the taxi industry, both in terms of entrenching democratic practices from association level to the National Council in terms of commercial activity. He was speaking at the elective conference of the South African National Taxi Council held at Sun City Resort in the Northwest. Joining us now to outline their understanding of the taxi industry reform plan is Santaco's Administrative Secretary, Bafana Magagula. Magagula, good evening, and thank you very much for your time and joining us tonight here in Focus. Before we get into the formalization aspect of it, let's talk a little bit about the conference and that we are aware now that there are two divisions in Gauteng of the organization who are challenging the legality of this national conference. How is Santaco viewing this particular challenge? Are you at all worried that the outcomes of this conference would be taken to court and challenged in a way that would reverse whatever it is that you have done this past week?
Look, we know we have followed our process according to our constitution. First of all, let me greet South Africa and say good evening and thank you for bringing us to your studio. Answering your question, it is everyone's right if he feels that somebody is offended or is not happy about our democracy. Of which I do not know who is the other party, because there's only one Santaco, and Santaco has gone through its own processes constitutionally and otherwise it has been properly followed until at the national level, from association, regional, provincial and national level. If there's anyone who feels unhappy about it and feel that he needs to take the matter to court, it is everyone's right to do that, and the court will then decide.
As far as you're concerned, you feel these regions were given their democratic right to participate in this elective process?
Everyone was invited. Unfortunately, if we invite you, we cannot force you to come. You exercise your right and decide whether you come to a conference or you do not come. Participating or your participation in our conference has nothing to do with us forcing you to come. Ours is to follow procedures accordingly in terms of issuing invites and holding the conference as per our constitution.
All right. One of the issues that the minister raised, particularly in his remarks as he was delivering his address there, is the issue of violence within the taxi industry and how to curb that. You don't see things like these where you've got two regions, for example, that are challenging the lawfulness of the elections of particular leaders in particular regions, saying, in Ekurhuleni, for example, saying, no, you do not adhere to basic democratic principles, as issues that could possibly fuel the kind of violence that we see in the taxi industry.
Well, we do not think any form of violence does solve problems, and I think everyone has an experience that violence has only taken lives and has caused orphans and widows, and it has an effect on our business because people begin to fear using our business, so that there is no way violence can solve our problems. And as you rightfully said earlier, whoever is offended is threatening to go to court, and that's the right procedure. And we believe in solving problems or challenges amicably. It should not resort to violence, because if anybody, if you believe anybody has not done or followed procedure properly, the only way to do that is to challenge that in court, not by violence. Never. Santaco condemns violence in the strongest possible term.
All right, let's then get into what the formalization of the taxi industry means. What is your understanding? Many believe that this would mean taxi businesses will now be formalized businesses that are registered with benefits, that pay tax to the government, and that are able to be regulated by government should there be anomalies or practices that are not within the law of this country. Does that pretty much sum it up, or is there more to formalization than that?
Look, people always believe that taxi operators are not taxpayers in South Africa. That is not true. I respect to say it is a lie. In terms of the Act, if you are an operator, unless you are an illegal operator, a taxi operator, if you are an operator that is legal, you obviously have to comply with the South African Receiver of Revenue. You must be a tax compliant before you can receive your operating license. You must go to your SARS. If you are not registered, register formally so that you can have a tax clearance which qualifies you to be in good standing before you get your taxi operating license. It is just not true that every time somebody look at a taxi owner, then he look at him as an illegal person in South Africa who is taking the law into his own hands, or who is doing as he wishes to do, especially when it comes to tax. We are registered taxpayers and we do pay tax, and we can prove that to anyone who challenges us to come forward and say, if anybody is not paying tax, he knows that when he wants his operating license, he will definitely be demanded a tax clearance.
Okay. How does this process then help in the entrenching of democratic practices at association level right up to the National Council in terms of the commercial activity? I once spoke to the Gauteng MEC for Transport saying, you see, there are commercial activities, for example, that are conducted because of the monies that are collected by the associations. And these are part of the things that create a little bit of tension within the taxi industry. And some of these practices need to be regulated. What does that formalization then mean as far as those investments and commercial activities of associations are concerned?
Well, from early or late 90s and early 2000s, we have encouraged associations to have formal offices where you keep records of your owners or membership, vehicles, drivers, and monies. We keep on discouraging it that they be collected from the street. They should be paid in the offices, because there is a Treasurer General who is supposed to be elected. And for instance, taking into consideration that we are now from electing a national structure, from early last year, June, we started democratizing from the taxi associations, regions, and of course, provincials, to make sure that the people that are in offices are elected people, and that is done constitutionally. So it all amounts to formalizing and making sure that the taxi industry operates in a formal way and in a legal and constitutional and democratic way. Therefore, anybody who is still collecting monies in the street, and I think it's not the first time that whoever is collecting monies in the street hear this, that it is not something that is encouraged. It should be disallowed. People should either do EFTs. There's so many ways now of collecting money, EFTs, or go and pay at the office, and the treasurer and his administrative team should immediately deposit that money in the bank, so that there is accountability, so that at the end of the year, at an annual general meeting, an audited financial statement should be presented to the constituency.